Hi, everybody. So welcome to House Calls, the podcast. Tonight, we are interviewing Kaylin Smith, but mostly this is our Father's Day episode. But before we get into the influence of fathers and the impact of fathers, we are going to find out, where are you, Kaylin?
Right now, I'm in Sherwood. I just finished up my master's in accountancy at
Okay.
University of Georgia. So I'm back for the summer, and then we'll head down to Atlanta some point in the fall.
And because why? You have a job there? You just think that's gonna be a nice spot?
I do have a job working
Nice.
for I'm working for Crow, the audit firm or
Right.
accounting firm down in
Right.
Atlanta.
And your dog's name is?
Crew.
Got it.
Not to be confused. Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And wait, first off, look at Ty right now, trying to look all smart and stuff. He has no idea what an audit firm means.
So,
He's like, audio?
So it's accounting. Like, you're checking the
Yeah.
books. You're running the books for companies. And do you, is that more consulting or what is that?
Well, I haven't started yet, so.
Okay.
Hey, Kaylin.
Kaylin,
here's
what
one
we're
for-
asking is, can our listeners hire you, or do you have to get trained first? Like, if they have a question, do we have to wait a little bit?
So if you have an accounting question,
Yes.
I don't know if I'd be the best person. I could try my best. I hear Lucy Waldron's also doing accounting, so we might
But we
Yeah.
have so much money flowing into House
Ah.
Calls, the podcast, from sponsors. We need somebody to keep track of it. So we got a Georgia Dogs helmet in the background there, and you're a
And-
huge Georgia Bulldog fan. So what I want to know is, now you're going to Atlanta, are you going to follow the Falcons, or do you have another helmet back there?
Well, I was pointing at the Ole Miss right there. We've got
Yeah.
Ole
Oh,
Miss
nice.
and Georgia.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah, no, I will definitely still be following the Ravens. So don't kick me out of the manifestors group
Okay.
chat too quickly.
All right.
The Ravens are down in Atlanta October 12th.
And Ty keeps referring to you as Kaylin, but I have my notes that you go by KK. Professionally, which one will you be going by? And do they call you KK because of your great grandmother? You loved her that much?
First, professionally, probably Kaylin.
Okay.
I think that's the decision I've gone with for now.
All
Just
right.
like I tried to go by
KK.
Hugh. Like I tried to go by
Yeah.
Hugh. Believe
Well,
me, it
that's-
doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I don't. Fair enough. KK is courtesy of your lawyer, Carlos Fernandez.
Yeah.
Who I don't believe knew my great grandmother either.
Speaking of Carlos, I need to give you an update on the American venture. They had a rough night last night. They were
Oh.
in Glacial National Park, and when your dad went on his cross-country trip with me and our friends, we went south. So we were not to the northern Glacier, Yellowstone, that kind of stuff until late July. And in that part of the country, like where Glacier National Park is, there's only two seasons. There's July and there's winter. And they were there during the winter. So they had a 30-degree windstorm. It was 15 degrees. They were soaking wet. They were kept up all night by a Sphinx. And Roddy said it was the worst night's sleep he's ever had.
Oh my.
But they
Were
all
they
survived.
Intense.
Yeah, they were intense. I don't have the total details. I know they all survived, and I saw an excellent video today where Carlos said hi, and he's doing fine. So if you've been worried about him,
He's the one I'm most worried about.
I
He
was about to
not
say,
made-
the rest of
he's-
them-
The rest of them, I
Ooh.
think, can handle it.
I'm
So-
surprised he hasn't booked a flight home, to be honest.
Now,
Well, his mom is on his way out. But
have
yeah,
you
it's
been
different.
following them on the Instagram, on the IG?
Yes. On who taught you that one?
Yeah.
Be honest.
Hey, Ty,
Very
Ty,
famous.
hey, Ty, do you have your watch on right now?
I don't. No.
You know what he has, KK?
Oh boy.
He has an Apple Watch. He keeps calling it. He's like, my Apple Watch. He's like, I can't make it up. I can't. Yeah, I was looking at my Apple Watch. I'm like, dude, it's Apple Watch or just your watch. It's not. It's KK is fine, but watch doesn't work.
That's good.
Yeah,
That is good.
yeah, that's our guy. But All right, so we've got people driving across country. We've got Ty and our friends, and your dad was part of that. We just did that recap last week, Operation Rolling Thunder. If you haven't watched it, totally check it out. There's the full movie in our YouTube channel. It's there, and highly suggest it. But I've watched it again, and it's just the power of movies. And it's just so fun to see everybody that young, see your dad, see all of us with hair. It's just special to have things documented like that, and what a gift that thing is.
But tonight is our Father's Day episode, so we're gonna start off light before we get deep. Matt, we're gonna let you go first. Who is your favorite like TV or movie dad? Or literature, any of them.
Oh, geez. I like Mr. Cunningham. He was from Happy Days. He was very good, sensible, good head on his shoulders.
And he wasn't just Richie's and Joni's dad and the one that got dropped after season 1, Chucky, but he was also a father figure to Fonzie, to Ralph Malph, to Potsy. Like they were always at the house. You know?
You know what? I'm going to throw this out there. Pete Smith.
Okay.
Is Mr. Cunningham.
He is.
He's really
Pop
like
Pete Smith.
Pop. It could be Mr. Cunningham.
Yeah, because we were always at his house, and partly that was Judy. Judy in her whole life, I don't think, has ever sent a kid home. Like if there's a kid there and it's 3 a.m, if it's dinner time, if they're going on the boat, she has never sent a kid home in her whole life.
True.
And then Pete was always there for the late night kitchen conversations, and he was also the all-time quarterback all the time. He was Mr. Cunningham. You're right.
Right.
And you were the Fonz?
Total Fonz, 100%. But I will also say, though, while Judy never sent anybody home, if Eric invited you over for lunch, what did you have to say? Did you make your bed? Because if Eric didn't make his bed and he brought somebody home from lunch, it was not a good time.
So, Kaylin, who is your favorite dad out there?
I was trying to think. Not sure if this is my favorite answer, but first one I thought of was Full House. Kind of 3 answers in that one.
All 3 of them.
The collab, always finding a lesson of some sort to bring out of it, and just fun to watch.
So we got Danny, Joey, and
Uncle Jesse.
Uncle Jesse, yeah. My favorite dad of all of it's actually literature. It's To Kill a Mockingbird, Atticus Finch. And one of my favorite things about him was his daughter just thought he was like a lawyer and read to her. And that's a lesson right there. You should read to your kids. And I know Eric read to you guys. And what was your book that you guys had that was special?
Where the Sidewalk Ends.
Yes. Okay. So
Yep.
You imagine that's Atticus Finch. But when the rabid dog came down the street, the police officer got nervous and couldn't shoot the dog. And Atticus Finch, he said, "You're the best shot in Macon County. You have to do it." And Scout, the little girl, was so surprised because she never knew her dad was this studly, like skilled guy. And I was like, I loved that moment in the movie and the book. Was just sometimes parents surprise their kids. You just don't know they have that in them. And then the other scene was at the court case when the older African-American man told Scout, "Stand up, your daddy's walking by," because the community had so much respect for him. So I'm going with Atticus Finch, which is way cooler than Mr. Cunningham or Uncle Joey.
That's
you might
fair.
be right.
I like
you
that
might
one.
be right.
Now, Matt, I thought you were going to come in with a bunch of stats on fatherhood because you always do the research.
No, my stats are I'm the father of 3. You're the father of 4, grandfather of 1 on the way.
Yep.
And Kaylin, to the best of my understanding, is not a father.
No.
Or not that she knows about.
And-
Hey-o.
I won't put Kaylin on the spot yet. I'm going to give her a chance to think about her answer. Matt, what were your thoughts on your earliest memories of your dad? So I'm talking toddler, like little guy.
My dad traveled a lot. And I was thinking about them. My parents are probably one of the best teams I've ever seen. And And so, and when I say dad travel a lot, he was definitely there. But I just remember my dad doing a lot of work on our house in Guilford by himself, by hand, um, and being shocked that I didn't know which end of a hammer to hold. Where he and Peter are like building, walls and things like that, and very impressed by that. And then, yeah, I just knew my dad had skills that I didn't have, and wanted to. It just wasn't part of my makeup. So I was just impressed that he could build stuff and do things that I had no idea how to do.
Kaylin, what are your earliest memories about your dad?
Earliest probably, well, it's just always I feel like kind of the thing people talk about in songs, but he would be at work and coming home and us getting super excited and running up to the door, which my mom always is like, well, I was home all day, so I never got the run up to the door and get super excited. He was definitely like working a lot at that point just because being a lawyer
Yep.
in your young 30s, you're working a lot. But he would always, like, two of the things we would do when he would get home from work that was like me and Avery would freak out over. One, we would play tag on the couch. So he would be on the ground and we'd run around on the couch, and then he'd grab one of us, throw us on the couch. And then when he would go upstairs to like refresh from work, me and Avery would come in and we would stand on the bed and he would hold us and go and we would jump and he would hold us, and then it would go up to the fan and then bring us back down, and then like kind of just like fun little games. He was working a lot when we were little, but it was never so much like he was always there on the weekends. And
Yes.
he would bring us in. Like some of my favorite memories were if he had to go into the office on the weekends, we would go in. He had a little Sunbeam truck in there. And so we'd play with that in the hall of the office. And I think it was good. It was probably good, even if I didn't realize it, to see him working a lot at that point, just working hard towards something, still making time for us at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
My earliest memories of my dad were actually we were living in Fort Rucker, Alabama, and I know that every kid, same thing. Like your mom's home with you all day, and then your dad comes home and he's kind of the star for people who their dads are out at, or their moms are home. Um, but my dad, we were living in an army base, and my dad was special forces, so he was jumping. My nursery school was next to the jump field, so they would jump into the field next to my nursery school. So I don't know if I ever realized which one he was, but he would come home in his jumpsuit on like Mondays. On Tuesdays, he'd come home in his doctor suit. So to me, 1970s, I was like, he truly was a superhero in my mind, just because of how crazy it was where I was living.
all right. So now your dad's cooler than Eric and Gina.
No,
All right, we
no,
got it.
we're
We
gonna
got it.
get
Okay, no,
we're-
move on.
no,
Yeah, I
no.
mean, jeez. I mean,
Yeah.
how am I supposed to compete with that? The other thing I remember about my dad though was he'd be like, take out the trash, and Peter and I would both be like, and Dad would always go pick a number between 1 and 10, and I learned early on it's always 8. Always 8. Peter never could get it. I'm like, you can go first. And Peter would be like, 2. And I'd be like, 8. He's like, 8 it is. And so Peter's always getting stuck with that. But it's those funny little things that you will always remember. But I love that your dad, you, Ty, had all these different jobs or different, personas when he came home. He wasn't a lawyer. He wasn't financial services. He had all these different things going
Well,
on.
it's funny because my dad passed away 10 years ago. And there's a couple things about that. The first thing is it wasn't all superhero. Like I described him in his eulogy as an angel with a broken wing. So I still see a lot of his patients, and those people adore him, you know. Um, but he had some of his other things that were challenging, but he never did any of those things around me. So around me, he was exactly what Tom Ripley described in his podcast, where he was like, your parents are always going to think you're the greatest thing ever. And like that was me, and where he thought like everything these kids did was the greatest thing ever. So that person who might be like yelling at somebody in the operating room, that's not who he was at home. So much to the fact, this is a grandfather story of his, but Ryan, his junior year, wrestled a guy who was probably the best wrestler in the history of Maryland wrestling. and he ended up being NCAA champion as a freshman the next year. So shout out to Miles Martin. Well, Ryan got crushed by him, and my dad was like, "Hey, I think the next time you wrestle him, you have a real good chance if you just do this, this, and this." He was so optimistic, and it was like, "No, that's insane. I mean, this guy's the greatest in history," type of thing.
But it is your upbringing and your dad's fault that your ego is so big. Is that what you're saying?
It probably
Now
is.
it all makes
That's
sense.
what I think.
There
That's
it
what
is.
I think.
That's it. The
what,
podcast is over. It took us
yeah.
79 episodes to get to this.
I think that's what Kaylin's KK's aunt Stacy Fernandez would insist was what happened to me. But
Yeah.
that's why I was
So
bold
she
enough
already
to
knew and didn't
Oh,
tell the rest.
oh, Stacy has known literally since she was 8. She's like, something's wrong here. He's not royalty. He's just a normal kid. He's a little bit goofy. I think, I think he's got some issues. So Kaylin, how did your dad, when we get into, like, I'm more talking then about the middle school age and the high school age where my dad was so encouraging all the time. How was your dad in that realm? Was he a
I
cheerleader
think
or an example person?
yes, 100%. Definitely a cheerleader. I think I wouldn't say that I was royalty, but he definitely, when I think about like middle school, high school, and this was all through my life, but he kind of like, he always believed in me a little bit more than I necessarily believed in myself, which I think happens when you're from an outside perspective, but then that always he kind of, by believing in me, could bring me up to his level, if that makes sense. So like, if I like, not that he thought that I was just going to get everything given to me. He didn't think I was going to beat the like number one. He knew I wasn't going D1 for lacrosse, let's say, but he thought I could like
Max out your
achieve more
potential.
than
Yeah.
yes, exactly. And so like through that, it usually brought up my belief in myself more than where it started before, kind of bouncing things off of him.
So he was also pretty steady, right? So was he a stabilizing figure where he was able to have those conversations quietly with you and be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, keep your chin up," that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this other day. Like if I like said something I was worried or stressed about just to him, he didn't really have to say anything, but or like it might have been something he couldn't do anything about, but just hearing what he had to say usually took my stress level from like up here down just by having him kind of carry it with me, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
very steady, stable, and knew he wasn't, no matter what it was, he wasn't gonna freak out on me.
No.
He could get hot if it came down to it. In 6th grade, they took me off the A team club lacrosse team, and he didn't tell me, but he had a full conversation with my coach, and I have never been so mad at him in my entire life. I was like, "What do you mean that you sat my coach down to ask why I wasn't on the 8-team lacrosse team?" But
So he was
he
passionate.
wasn't mad at me. That was
No.
on the coach.
But that was that was Eric, right? Even like talking to him, even his voice didn't change. Not that he's monotone by any. for all that.
Definitely an anchor.
When I was in the 7th grade, this is I'm going to bring this back to being the father of daughters. But when I was in 7th grade, I was reading this book, and it was a biography of Babe Ruth, and it was talking about when he was young, and he grew up in Baltimore, right in like the outfield of Camden Yards. And somebody told him like, "Hey, decide what you want to be." And Babe Ruth wanted to be a great hitter. And he said, "Pick out somebody and copy them." And Babe Ruth says, and I chose Shoeless Joe Jackson, and that was good enough for me. So when I read that book in the 7th grade, I was like, who do I want to be like as a dad? I was like, I want to be a good dad. Who do I want to copy? And the couple people I'm going to bring up were, obviously there were things that my own dad that I really wanted to copy and do. One of the things I really noticed about your grandfather was how he related to his daughters. Like, he did everything that he did with your dad and your Uncle Peter. He did the same things with Stacy and Katie. So you saw him playing tennis with Stacy all the time, playing golf with Katie all the time, being out on the boat with different kids. It wasn't like some people in that generation who were kind of like, oh, I can't wait to have a son type of thing. And then I remember your uncle Carlos had 3 daughters, and we were at my parents' house, and and Stacy. We don't, in our family, we don't call people Uncle and Stacy. We just call them Carlos and Stacy. Uh, but Stacy was pregnant, and we also, nobody in our family ever finds out what they're having, including Emma. She doesn't know what she's having. And I was like, "Oh, are you hoping for a boy?" Just like, "You've had 3 girls, I'm hoping for a boy." And he's like, "You know what? I'm happy with just any baby. It's not like that. Like, girls are so fun, all this kind of stuff." And so the thing about like picking out the great dads, I think I take a little bit from everybody. I'm like, "Oh, I want to copy that. I want to copy that." And I love the attitude of just like being a girl dad, but not like, "Oh, I'm just having tea parties with them all the time." It's like you're doing everything you would do for your kid, the same thing, whether it was a boy or a girl, with subtle
Yeah.
differences.
No, and I think my dad, he definitely did that. I think like because today a lot will be like the most recent thing I can think of is the astronaut that was like the one female that made it to the moon, and they point out so much that she's a girl, and it always has confused me when they did that because to me, like growing up, my dad did the same thing. I feel like you both do for your daughters, where it was never like, she's my daughter, so I treat her this way. I was just his kid, and we're gonna go and play pass in the backyard, and
Right.
he's gonna help me study for my test and try to do super well on whatever I was working on. It was never,
Yeah. It was
it
not
was just
gender
never
specific.
dependent on
Yeah.
being a daughter. So, like, I just never thought of it that way.
I would like to go back to. I'm sorry. I'd like to go back to Uncle Carlos and Aunt Stacy and ask them now if they're happy with the 4th one.
Yes, of course they are.
Yeah, we'll
That didn't
figure it
sound
out.
that enthusiastic.
It didn't. It didn't.
Yeah,
It did not.
yeah, yeah. So when you're more like a preteen teenager and you're driving around, did you have compromise music? What was the music you listened to in the car? Or did you just listen to Preppy Redneck and the stuff he liked?
Funny enough, we actually were the one he listened to my playlist without me
Right.
even being in the car, which was just country music, basically.
Right.
But we
That's what I
always
say. It wasn't that big of a turn. Like, wow.
no,
Because
and
he listened.
actually,
Because your dad listened to country and western, and you were just country. Okay.
well, he actually when I think I must have been like 5 or 6. I had just gotten like a CD player for my birthday, and my mom got me like the High School Musical CDs, whatever that I could listen to. And he made a CD of this Cowboy's Hat by Chris. I'm blanking on who it is, but basically, like there's
Chris
barely any
Ledoux.
even. Yes, Chris
Chris
Ledoux.
Ledoux.
That
Yeah.
there's barely even any singing in it, and it was my favorite CD. So I guess he made it a mission that there didn't have to be compromised music because he instilled in me from a young age to listen to what he wanted to listen to.
That makes sense. That tracks also because when I think of Eric Smith, I do not think of compromise. You
Can
know,
I tell a Chris Ledoux story though that Eric and I
No.
involved? So Chris Ledoux, great country singer, sings "This Cowboy's Hat," tons of other great songs. Listen to him. But Garth Brooks had a song when Garth Brooks was at his biggest of all, and in the line is that he's traveling and something lines keep coming for me or whatever, and he says worn out tape of Chris Ledoux, meaning he listened to the tape so many times. Eric thought it was worn out tape and Grizzly Dew. Like he had a gross haircut because he was on the road. Worn out tape and Grizzly Dew.
So
are we going to tell those stories about Eric?
No.
No,
No.
because I got a couple more if you got time.
Yeah. So Matt, what was your compromise music when you were in the car with your dad, or did your dad? What did he listen to?
So there was no compromise music with us, but the thing about Kaylin talking about her dad, and my dad was definitely a champion of mine, definitely, but he was also a realist. And he literally would go to teachers and be like, when they'd get called, about something I had done, one teacher called my dad at the office, and he told John Stewart, he's like, hey, this is the last time you have to call me. Whatever you want to do to him is fine by me. Whatever you have to do.
Yeah.
And so my dad's like, hey, here it is. This is the plan. And if you're messing up, I'm not going to, you've done something. So figure it out and figure out how not to do it. So it was kind of the same as Eric and as your dad, but it was just to take a completely different route to it.
Talking about great dads, Chuck Baldecki told that kind of same story at his dad's eulogy, where there was something that happened to Chuck in school, and he
Yep.
thought that his dad was going to come in and take care of that teacher. And then the teacher and the dad came out arm in arm, best friends. And Chuck
That's
was like,
right.
what happened here?
It is funny to think about times and your dad, your grandfather, Ty's dad and Kaylin's grandfather, but have been there as father figures for all of us, have helped certain people out of jams, just. I guess my point is, I think when you're a dad like that and you want the best for your kids and your kids' friends, they're a dad to everybody.
There's a great story your brother has, speaking of road trips, where the summer that we were cross country, like Eric and I were gone. And so my dad had no summer league lacrosse to watch
That's right.
because Eric and I were gone. So he goes and watched Pete Waldron's lacrosse game. He's like, Pete, what night's your game? I need something to do. So he goes and watches Pete Waldron's lacrosse game. My dad doesn't understand that summer league's a little bit more laid back. So Pete is going for a ground ball on the sideline, and we're not going to edit this. Pete makes a business decision. The defenseman going for the ball is 6'2", 225 pounds. Pete's team's winning. Pete's probably one of the best people on the team. So he just does a one-handed, tries to dodge him, not get hit. And he basically does not take the hit. And my dad just goes, Pete, you fucking pussy. What are you doing? And it's halftime. Pete goes to the sideline, and everybody on the team, summer league teams, you don't know everybody. And they're like, man, your dad is intense. And Pete's like, no, that's not my dad. That's my buddy's dad. My friends are going cross country, so he needed a game to watch, and he's just a neighborhood guy.
Yeah, it tracks. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But speaking of sports, did you guys bond with your dads over sports?
Totally.
Mhm.
Everything.
When I was quitting lacrosse, I think that was I didn't really care about the sport anymore, but I think I just didn't want to lose the bond with my dad because it had been and we obviously did not, but that was my biggest fear when I was stopping playing. And then he quickly latched on to badminton and squash. So there was that.
And what a treat, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that your dad got to watch you and your sister, what's her name, Amy? Amy?
Yeah, we call her Sass.
Okay. Yeah. Sassy Pants. You and Avery be champions together in doubles badminton. I always thought that was just so cool for him and your mom and everybody and your grandparents to get to see that.
How does that work when he was such a great athlete? You heard the thing where I went through the whole list that he's way better athlete than Deion Sanders' cousin Junebug.
Yep.
How does that work where he has played a lot of badminton, because I played him in badminton and we played in the finals of adult camp day, but I don't want to brag about me and I don't want to brag about your dad. He obviously was not a trained badminton player, but he knew so much about sports. How did he then step back and not coach you, or did he coach you a little bit or when you were playing badminton?
Yeah, in badminton, I mean, it was definitely different than lacrosse, but he knew I started playing, I guess, Sherwood badminton and I guess playing high school badminton. It wasn't that much different, but a little bit different. But he knew basically just as much as I did going into it. So
Kaylin, advice, a little advice. You need to make it sound like it was way, way higher level. Like when you're sitting around the coffee at your new job and people start talking about where they were D1 athletes and stuff, you need to mention that you were a state champion badminton player, but you wanted to go to school and concentrate on academics. Just a little advice, sell it.
Yeah. Well, if you were wondering, I was the last, or probably the most recent badminton player on the badminton courts. I have already played 2 times in Sherwood this summer.
Who'd you beat?
So
Wow. Are you going for High Point? What's the goal?
Who'd you beat?
gotta get the reps in before
Yeah, you gotta get.
Oh, yeah.
playoff week's right around the corner.
Yeah, it sneaks up on you every year. Oh, good. I'm glad you're keeping the skills fresh.
So
Yeah.
back to you,
Yep.
Matt. When I actually asked the question, I meant, did you bond over professional sports and like being a sports fan? But first, Matt, did you bond with your dad over golf?
Oh yeah, totally.
Uh-huh.
100%. And that's probably where I got my love of the game. But my brother and sister had I think we've all had different things that we bond, that, relationships that you bond with your parents. But golf and my dad, that's ours. But definitely, I'm a Redskins fan because of him. It's probably the same for you, right, Ty?
Well, yeah. I mean, I loved watching football with my dad and,
Yeah.
and baseball with my dad. And sometimes you get to that age where you don't want to take advice as much, but you can always talk about sports. Like
Yep.
I could always talk about Doug Williams and Jay Schrader and John Riggins and those kind of things. And Kaylin, I was from a mixed marriage. So my mom's family was all Baltimore Colts fans, and my dad's family was all Commanders fans. So until the Ravens came, I lived a double life. It wasn't until the Ravens came where I started manifesting 100% for the Ravens.
Yeah.
So you
And-
were split. You
I was
didn't
split.
choose
He's a
to-
mix. He's
Yeah.
a mix.
I was
He a
mixed. Yeah.
He was a
That's
mix.
tough.
Now, what
So-
sports teams did you and your dad bond over, Kaylin?
Definitely Ravens. I don't think I would obviously be a Ravens fan just growing up in Baltimore, but I think that I tried to learn the sport and know what was actually going on, starting out mostly so that I could watch it with him, and I knew that he loved it, so I wanted to be able to talk to him about it. And that
Both your parents were so excited that you went to Georgia, so they had a football team to root for. They say they're happy for you, but it was really about them and getting into a school that they could really get after. So that was fun to watch as well. And
No, my
that's
dad fully jumped in on that one,
Oh, yeah,
which was
yeah.
also very fun.
Yeah, we had to call him dog and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was,
Well,
it
he
was
would
really
always
weird.
he would give we did this week, and I'm like, so you aren't in Athens actually, and
Yeah.
you're not on the team.
Yeah. Good to know. Yeah, we got a big game coming up this weekend.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it.
He adopted that one quickly.
Yeah.
And he also helped you because you were the only woman in your fantasy football league, right? Like a certain fantasy football league, and he would help you sometimes when you got too busy because you were always studying, whereas those knuckleheads you were with had plenty of
Yeah.
time to dedicate to their football team, but you needed some help on the side, right?
Well, I think he was designated manager. I think it was less so. I think I was just so good the rest of them couldn't get a manager
fair.
for their
That's fair.
teams, so I was able to bring one on. Yeah.
So, but is that why you were in college for 5 years? That
Yeah.
was why.
Yeah.
But so was I.
No, but to clarify, she got a master's her 5th year. You came out 7 years later, just
I did.
college
I did.
graduate.
With just one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, with just one, but you got. Okay. Look at you, smarty pants.
They call it
All right.
a double dog, actually.
A double dog. I love it. Okay, good, got it. Now it's all. My God, I really have to blame my parents because my dad. I went to the same college as my dad did, but he never pointed out where the library was. And I'm pretty sure if I knew where the library was, it would have been a different story.
So it's your dad's fault.
Yeah.
Do you notice as you've gotten older things that your dad maybe tried to teach you or mention to you and you kind of blew him off? And now you're like, oh, now I know what he was talking about. Do you have those moments? So like my dad would give you advice, but he actually did not. Like you would think if you knew him in the work world, you'd think that he was hammering it down. He told you once, and then it was up to you to listen or not. And he would always say, you can send them to school buying the books and all they do is eat the covers. And that was his classic thing. So he was pretty laid back about when you don't take his advice. And now I think back all the time, I'm like, oh, that's what he meant. That's like, it's like these mental light bulbs go off in my head. I'm like, oh,
Right.
that makes sense.
I think my dad was the same way, even though he would have to reprimand me and be like, "This is a broken record. I'm telling you again, pay attention. Don't do this. Don't do that." If I came to him looking for advice, whatever it is, even now, professionally or anything, I got to ask him like, "Hey, what do you think about this situation?" He doesn't give it. I have to ask for it.
Yeah.
But the lessons that my dad taught me were things such as he always was a big fan of too much is given, much is expected. That was one that I think about all the time. And never wear your hat inside. He's gonna be upset with you, Ty. And the one that he taught my brother and I before Emily was born is never pee uphill.
Right. That's a good one.
The words of wisdom from Gino.
I think definitely yes. I think my dad was a lot of the lessons he shared, I don't know if he even fully knew he was giving them. It was a lot just through what he was doing and me wanting to replicate that. I remember kind of when things were coming to a close, he was like, I don't have like this list of lessons that I'm going to hand over. And I looked at him, I was like, you've given me for 21 years, you've done that. There doesn't need to be a list. And I think like even as time goes on, they'll just keep coming up and being like, oh, there he is. That's what he meant. That's what he was trying to show me. I think the one thing he would always say to me, like usually if I was like going out in Sherwood on whatever he knew was heading down to the gully, he'd always say, use your head. So that was a big one. Use your head. And I'd be like, got it right here. Not losing it.
So with I mentioned at the beginning, my dad of literature was Atticus Finch, and I mentioned Atticus Finch moments where people surprise you. And there's an Atticus Finch moment with Eric where we had always grown up together. We were cousins. We were kids. He was always a very stabilizing figure in my life. But even as adults, I'd never really seen him in the adult world. I'd only seen him in the social world, in the playing sports world, in the being kids world. And there was a moment where we were at a pretty big meeting. We have town meetings in our community. And Terry O'Donovan, who was my partner, was the president of running the meeting. And there was a legal question that came up. And Terry was like, oh, well, hey, Eric, are you here? Can you come up here? And I was like, at this time, I had a pretty big fear of public speaking myself. And I was
Got
like,
over that
oh,
quick.
yeah. I was like, oh my God, he's calling Eric off the spot. I mean, we're late 40s to talk to all these people who are adults who are in their 60s and 70s. And I'm like, oh my God, poor Eric, poor Eric. And it was right in his wheelhouse. He's a lawyer. He explained the complex legal situation right away. I was like, oh my God, I didn't know he could do that. And it was like my Atticus Finch moment where like, it was like shooting the rabid dog. It was like Eric shot the rabid dog. And I was like, man, he is a good lawyer. I didn't know he had it in him.
You had no idea what he was saying, but man, oh man, did he
doesn't
sound
even advertise on the side of
I was like, he's so smart.
Yeah.
And I had the same.
Is that when you start doing the? You start doing the slow clap.
I had the same situation with my dad when I was a medical school student. They asked him a question at a orthopedic hand conference, and I was like, "Oh my God, my dad's gonna embarrass me. He's not gonna know the answer." And obviously, that's what he does. He crushed it, and like he's spoken on that issue many times. I was like, "Oh my God, he actually knows something."
Yeah, I can't wait till my kids get there. My God, he actually knows something. I think it's going to be
still working on that one.
Yeah,
it'll happen.
Okay,
I can tell you now, my oldest has a lot of things where he was buying the books, sending them to school, and all he does is eat the covers. And I would get a little anxious about it. Anne was very laid back about it. And then as soon as he got a girlfriend and engaged and married, his wife's name is Maddie, and he'll be like, Maddie says I should try this, and we're like, we've been saying that for 10 years, but we never say it like that. I mean, we tease him about it, but we're like, sometimes you need to hear it from a different voice.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got, but your job as a parent is to plant the seed. Yeah. Right. That's really the job.
Is there anything that like your dad did that you thought was weird until you realize that that's what all dads do, or other dads do, or other people do? Like as you became an adult, was there anything you're like I can tell you our podcast that comes out after this one was with Billy Molden, and my dad was famous for having scissors in his socks.
Yes.
And the story behind that was when he was in Vietnam, he asked my mom to send him a pistol that he could put in his sock, so he was always armed, even when he was operating. And the crazy story about that pistol was when he left Vietnam, he gave it to the Mountain Yard bodyguard, his Mountain Yard bodyguard. And that pistol in the late 70s was confiscated in a robbery in Towson, Maryland. So the fact that we were living in Towson, it was confiscated on York Road. So he left it in Vietnam and it made its way back to Towson is crazy. But the point is
The
that
point is your dad was a bank robber.
that gun
Is that-
became a knife and ultimately became scissors. And it was like everybody was like, well, that's weird. Like if we were at birthday parties and your KK's dad is opening up a gift and you can't get it quick enough, there's my dad with the scissors. So everybody knew
But the
about
great
it.
thing is there were the long
The
surgery
long
scissors. I mean,
surgical
they were like,
scissors, and he'd always pull them out of his
pull
sock.
them out. Yep.
Well, then I don't know if you noticed this, but Billy Molden said that, yeah, Billy Molden said the same thing. When he got back from the military, he went for his gun when he thought somebody was there. He went to his leg for his gun. He was on the Sherwood Forest store, but it was out of reflex that he felt naked without anything there. And it wasn't even a dangerous situation. It was literally just a stranger that he hadn't done a proper risk assessment on. And I was like, oh, so that weird thing that my dad used to do really wasn't that weird. You know, when you meet other people who do that kind of thing.
So, all right. So you're asking the girl whose late father rode a unicycle, would not was the most boring eater of all time, if he ever did anything weird or strange. And thank you for not using a straw. Is that what you're asking? I just wanted to make sure.
I want to know if any of those things are like, oh, that was weird, until I found out that my college friends' dads were the same way when they came down to visit or something.
Yeah, they all
like
brought their
that.
unicycles down to Athens.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it was a little bit of the opposite, where I thought things were normal until, like, you find out that not everybody's dad does that. Like, he used to keep, like, a sleeve of Ritz crackers in his pocket sometimes in case he got hungry. And I was like, yeah, in case he needs a snack, but not everybody does that.
So your dad used to always tell a story. Do you know who Herm Edwards is? He was a coach for the New York Jets, and your dad saw an interview where Herm Edwards admitted he always had a thing of Fig Newtons, a sleeve of Fig Newtons in his pocket to remind him of a time where he didn't have enough money to have Fig Newtons. So I think Eric carried Ritz crackers to remind himself of a time
when
where
Mimi
Judy wouldn't let
him
him have Ritz crackers because they'd leave too many crumbs around the house.
And that explains it.
Yeah.
It all comes back to Mimi. Oh my
Matt,
God.
did you have any moments like that with your dad where you look back and you're like, oh man, that was pretty normal?
He was pretty normal all the way around, and if anything, I probably emulated him enough that I just did the exact same thing. So it wasn't odd or anything like that.
Including
for me as
losing your hair? Was that a copy?
100%. I only shaved my head just to be like him.
Okay.
You know that, right? But did you feel pressure being the only son?
No, I think I basically, when I was describing the story of Pete always including his daughters and Carlos being such a great girl dad and Eric being such a great girl dad, I had a very different experience than my sisters. They both very much loved my dad, but my dad was a guy's dad. He even said at Peter Smith's rehearsal dinner that when Peter was born, he was so excited because he was worried there was something in the water that you could only have girls. And so he did not get cheered on by my sisters for that. And my sisters my sister who's still with us looks back and has great memories of my dad, but realizes he was an angel with a broken wing. But I didn't have any of those things. He was a guy's dad, whether it was taking me to see the outlaw Josie Wales when I was 6 years old, or
driving Corvettes,
taking me to wrestling matches when I was young. He coached me in like the wrestling type clinics.
Yep.
He ran the wrestling clinic in Sherwood for years, and he ran the karate class in clinic in Sherwood for years that me and Eric both did with him. And he was probably the world's greatest wrestling fan. You know, I mean, he went to Pete's lacrosse game just because there was nothing else to do, but he would go around the city and see his patients' wrestling matches. Like those were his his VIPs. And
Yeah.
Devin Klepper is a great story where he would look up in the stands and there's my dad going, you know, giving him the fist up, and he's like, "Why is Butch House here? I thought Ty was in college."
KK did put pressure on you to become a lawyer, or it was always your dad was always about doing your best. There are going to be obstacles, but you got to go for it and be disciplined. And yeah, your dad's probably the most focused and disciplined person I know. You know, in
Yeah.
everything he did.
Do you
And
ever
I
look
think
back and, like, say, "Okay," because you've had some huge decisions to make this year, like where to work, where to live, all that kinda stuff. Do you ever look back and kinda have those conversations in your head with your dad? Kinda like
d
where you're like, "What would my dad say? How would this conversation go?"
definitely. I think, well, because kind of doing the masters, was kinda like the last decision per se that I, like, did with him, so where to go next was definitely the first time being like, "And, hello, I need some help over here." But I think knowing I feel I feel like I know what he would say most of the time, which is definitely comforting. Like, I think he'd be happy that I'm living in the South for a little bit, not coming home right away. I think,
Absolutely.
he would definitely be a big fan of that. He was a fan of anything I was doing as long as I was trying my best at it, and he was
That's right.
always gonna like, he was a really good at kind of like with the badminton stuff, and when it came to when I decided to, like, do business, and obviously he was in the world of business with being a lawyer, but it wasn't the same thing, but he would talk to people just trying to figure out what does accounting look like? What does finance look like? So he was always trying to be the most informed he could so he could help me with those decisions, and I honestly think, like, everything he learned and then shared with me is still helping me right now as I kind of start out in my career.
Well, and also when he was your age, he was kinda, like, going into the family business, and then he was going into law school, and then he did the whole law firm thing, and then he started kinda getting into looking at different properties on the Eastern Shore for, like, I guess, solar farms and wind farms, so he had so many different facets to his career. Does that make it kinda seem like, okay, this is your job now, but you have the ability to pivot? Like, you don't have to do this from now until you're 80. Like, he did
Yeah.
so many different things and pivoted within being a lawyer. Does that give you comfort?
Yeah, I think it definitely does, and I remember him yeah, like, right now, just because it's especially relevant since I'm kind of at the end of school going into what will be my career, at least for a little bit, and just change and dealing with all of that, and I remember him talking about kind of just like, because it's such kind of an anxious time, and he had told me about it probably when I was a junior in college and I was feeling pretty good at that point. I was like, I've got my friends at school, I'm going out every weekend, I'm going to football games, and we were just talking about whatever, and he was talking about when being in your early 20s and him saying that, it like he was pretty anxious at that time, like trying to figure out what he was gonna do. He was driving the bread truck. He was supposed to go work for the family business, but he wanted to go to law school, all that type of stuff. And so back then it wasn't as relevant, but now like I probably think about it like every time I'm like, oh, this all this change doesn't feel great. I'm like, but it's normal and you can get through it because he did and that doesn't mean he figured out one thing and went with it, but he kind of kept pushing, tried new things, and none of it was permanent, and that's okay. Well, not
Yeah. No, you're
temporary
right.
either, but
But but back to that point though, knowing your dad's parents as well, and I remember that time, right? Like, hey, this is kind of the path. Like, this is what you do. You as a Smith, you go into the family business, and Eric is like nervous about it. Like, I don't know if that's my path, but he's got these loving parents who, same as your dad was to you, just wanted you to be the best at what you were doing, whatever it was. And so they were like, okay, that's fine. Go law school, go, to the circus and learn how to unicycle and juggle, whatever it was. But I just think that's neat to see that transcend through the generations.
Mhm.
I
Did
thought
you
that was
ever
cool.
you never thought about unicycling? KK. Like you never, like, I don't know, like I started wrestling because my dad wrestled. I'm surprised you didn't start unicycling. Like, I'm just
It's a good
shocked.
point, and you know what? I actually blame him for that. The unicycle was always in the
It's
garage,
always there. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
and
Okay.
he didn't make the push for it. I think selfishly he knew I would be better than him,
100.
and
Yep.
so he didn't wanna take that
Yeah.
chance
Yeah.
was the
That
problem.
makes sense.
Well, I don't know how to work this in the conversation, but like, I feel like there is a problem of not enough dads. Like we already did the Mother's Day edition, and there's so many great moms, and I think in all of our families, the mom was the backbone in the family. You know,
Sure.
whether it was Missy, my mom, your mom. But the dads being that team, they add something, and the stats will prove it to you. Like we need more dads in the world, and you do not have to be a unicycle riding lawyer. Like you just need to be a dad, and like you need to be present.
Yep.
And you need to be around, and you will mess up and you might lose your temper and your kids might not listen to you, but that just being present in their life and treating their mom well will probably be the greatest influence that a guy can have. So it's like encourage people to start paying attention to like the great dads in your life. And to bring this back to sports,
So
uh, Deion Sanders has said openly when he does not know that about the whole Junebug Eric Smith rivalry I got going
oh,
here.
it's all over the internet. No,
But
it's all
Deion
over.
Sanders
It's
talks about
gone viral, you didn't
yeah, Deion
Yeah.
Sanders talks about recruiting, and he's like, when I'm recruiting an offensive lineman, I want somebody from a two-parent household. I want somebody with a dad because they're going to be more stable. They're going to be able to do the plays. They're going to be able to do everything. And he's like, but when I'm recruiting defensive linemen, I want somebody without a dad, somebody raised by a single mother, because that rage is what I need in a defensive lineman. And like Deion is Deion Sanders, so he can say it out loud. But like if you have a dad who cares about you, that's a huge step up in life. Even though they may not be perfect, even though I might annoy my kids sometimes, I think just doing the best that I can
What? No.
is a chance.
That's a different podcast, KK. But but though Ty, as you said, these role models. So as we've talked about, my mom is winding down her battle with ALS.
Mhm.
It's coming to an end, and seeing my dad step up over the last 18 months has been life changing. And there's been some special moments from that that I'll never forget. I was just the three of us having dinner recently, and my mom was complimenting about how great he's been. Genie's been so, and my dad was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is what I signed up for. Remember when I said I do? This is the deal. And that moment will live with me forever. And it's those kinds of moments that make, it doesn't matter mom or dad, but those are the ones that keep you going and make me strive to be a better friend, brother, and father.
And I think seeing, because you need both, to be honest, and sometimes it's not even them parenting, but for me, watching my parents be such a team through
Right.
good and bad is, I mean, like, not that I think I even consciously even still maybe realize how much of impact that'll have on me, but I think it's very important and will kind of be with me for the rest of my life.
But it'll be with me too, watching your parents go through that stuff. You forget you have a lot of eyes on you, in this world, and got to do the right thing.
Matt, do you think that our generation was more anxious parenting than our parents' generation, or do you think
Yes.
people just talk about it more? Like
All the above. All the
uh,
above. I think our generation is way more anxious, way more keeping up with the Joneses, making sure like my kid's okay, and looking to fix problems instead of letting kids fix problems.
yeah.
I've got my youngest is at Beach Week, and the amount of texts from the moms that are going on around there, I was like, whoa, everybody. These are all smart, good girls. They're all going to these great colleges. They're going to be okay. They can handle Ocean City for a week. But it's just interesting to watch.
Kaylin, what's your insight on that? Do you think that do you think that your parents were a little bit more anxious than, say, your grandparents were, or more anxious than you think you'll be, or not even your parents, but people our generation? Like, do you have any insight on that? Like compared
I
to your
think,
grandparents?
well, yes, I definitely think your generation of parents, not to say that my parents were necessarily super anxious. I mean, maybe they were, I don't know. But there's definitely some parents that are, I mean, they just can't help themselves but get involved. And I honestly think that was always kind of more common growing up. I think group chats honestly had such an impact on that for parents. Like you talk about that with kids, but just the mom group chats, which there's a lot of good things that can come out of those, but a lot of times, I mean, I know I would just get annoyed because it'd be like, your curfew's 10, and then 2 days later it'd be like, well, actually, blah blah blah's mom says hers was 9:30, so yours is now too. And I'd be like, are you
Yeah.
kidding me? So I think that has just changed a lot, just being able to be like feeling like you need to do what other parents are doing. I also, Mimi and Pop, from what I hear, and as they are as grandparents, were some pretty laid back parents. So I don't even know if that's
Yes, apples and
a
oranges.
fair comparison.
But
Um,
but your grandparents were very laid back, but there was a line, right?
mhm.
They were not hands by no means to think that they were hands off.
Yeah. No, I
There
feel
was
like
a
there
line
was a
that
line. It was
everyone knew.
clear.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was,
Yeah, they knew where Eric was, and if they didn't, Eric left a note. So if Eric was
Yes.
sneaking out, he would leave a note.
Which I always thought was so sweet of him.
Yeah. A-
thoughtful, really.
And you
It
weren't
really
allowed to
was.
you were allowed to stay as late as you wanted, but you can't trash the house. You can't drag mud into the house,
No.
kind of thing.
No. No.
See, these are all fair rules.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
thought so. Well, so wrap this thing up. It's going to be coming up on 2 years
Mhm.
that we lost Eric. Feels I don't know. It feels like it was yesterday for me. Still think about him all the time. Grateful to see him as a friend, as a brother, as a father. I'm grateful for my dad. I'm grateful for uncles. I'm grateful for a lot of my friends' dads. Because as Ty was saying, you need role models, and sometimes hearing something from somebody else works a little bit. It just resonates a little bit differently than it does from your own dad. So, I'm grateful for Gino, and yeah, I'm grateful for Eric and a lot of dads out there.
Yeah.
And that there are studies that say it's so important to not just have your dad, but lots of dads around you
Yeah.
because you take a little bit from each one, and no dad is perfect. I think they all do the best they can. They all love their kids, and it's so great to have other ideas of how other people are doing it. And I think putting them all together, like you said, is the way to go. And keep like we're still dads. Like your daughters, my kids are all out of college, but you're a different type of parent, but you're still a parent. And my favorite thing, I've said this before, is hanging out with my kids late at night. And I learned that at the Smith's house
Yeah.
because Pete was always hanging out with us late at night. So
Yep.
that's my favorite thing. I love hanging out with my kids late at night. And that's one thing I learned from an uncle. And I learned tons of stuff, a lot with my career, a lot with how I treat people in my career, and so many other lessons from my own dad.
Yeah. No, and I could not be more grateful for my dad and for both of you. You also both act as my dads, and I couldn't be more grateful for that. Um, and it's cheesy, but I would take the 21 years with my dad over anything else.
I love that.
Me
Yep.
too. Me too. And
So,
thank you.
and happy Father's Day to all the dads, to Pop, to Gino, to everybody.
Yep. We
This
end
is
with
great.
that.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
out. I'm done. Okay, Caleb, that was awesome.